what do you think about this stand-up for nuclear in Brussels this year?
It's the best there's ever been. Now, it can't be the best there ever will be, but it's the best that it's ever been, and I am hoping that the reason the next one is better, because it's a massive party, because we've heard that we're saving both nuclear plants in Belgium.
Okay. And so, what is the situation in USA?
So in the United States, there's the right wing and the left wing. The right wing sometimes loses nuclear plants through negligence. That is, the nuclear plants are struggling in electricity markets, and then they close and nobody does anything. The problem on the left-wing politics is that they intentionally kill the nuclear plants. So on the left-wing politics, that tends to be on the coasts with cities, and the cities are powered by nuclear plants, and the politicians are they don't understand really anything, and they think a slogan is as good as a megawatt. And then they shut off the nuclear plants straight into power crises. We're now starting to have a power crisis in both California and New York. And in both states, it is not only from shutting down nuclear plants, but nuclear plants are the only things that could stop it in the future, besides emergency gas generators.
And what say the workers? What do they say?
The workers are only beginning to find their voice. We heard very impassioned speeches from some of the workers at Indian Point the day their plant died. That's not soon enough. We are hearing more and more workers at Diablo Canyon, California speak out, but they're always doing it at danger of sanction and perhaps firing from their company. The company that runs that plant has to be careful because motivated employees at a nuclear plant that they themselves say is doomed are incredibly precious, because where are you going to find more to go work at a plant that the owner says you will shut down? It's a very bad problem. And as you might know, in Belgium, 2024, 2025 is 2.5, 3 years away, extremely close in planning terms. It's the same problem at Diablo Canyon in California as it is in Belgium. As the owner who's willing to close and destroy the plant because of political pressure, how do you keep plant workers so motivated that they don't leave or do a bad job, but without letting them speak out to save the plant? So we're fighting against that problem a little bit in the plants that are still running. In Illinois, we had a better situation, of course, because the owner wanted to save the plant, but only if the plant was not going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of a 1.5-year refueling cycle. So in Illinois, it's clear we had a better start for the campaign to save the plants because the owner wanted to keep them, and local politicians, as most places in the world, wanted to keep the plants. And most importantly for Illinois politics, the labor unions demanded saving the plants. But that meant that there was a split between labor unions on one side and the left-wing nonprofits on the other that say things like equity and jobs, and they just didn't mean equity like there's enough electricity, and they didn't mean jobs like the workers at the nuclear plants, because of course they mean equity in the sense of like, you know, rich white NGO people talking about black people in cities, and they mean the jobs as in casual labor building solar and wind plants far from the city in the countryside. So there was a split between the two cultures, actual workers in actual clean energy and non-workers with contempt for workers with sort of lesser green energy. What we had to do is get over the resistance from left-wing politicians to be willing to be seen actively acting to change some rules and operation effectively in the electricity markets to save the plants. That was very complicated to understand, very complicated to explain. We would say to politicians, let's save the nuclear plants. And they would say, well, okay, but not if it makes the owners happy. And then you'd say, but the owners are closing it because they aren't getting money. If you save the nuclear plants, the owners will be happy because their nuclear plants are saved. You can't possibly square those things. So it was a very long set of conversations, carefully explaining that the only winners if the plants closed are not the climate people, it's not the labor unions. Only winners were the specific backers, the capital owners of the coal and gas plants that have been suffering from the same lack of electricity revenue as the nuclear plants. And it was very difficult to get this thought process through their heads that you can say any carbon goal you want. You can say you're going to have 0 carbon tomorrow. You can say, more sensibly, we will have all coal and gas phase out by 2035 or 2040. But if you lose your nuclear plants today, it doesn't matter what carbon targets you do, you're going to reverse it all just to keep the grid on. Same thing in Belgium. They're going to give up with all the climate targets that you could ever dream up. All of them are pointless if you close half the supply of electricity in your country. So we did eventually make it clear to them that all carbon goals were pretty much useless if they lost the nuclear plants, and I think the message finally took hold. I think they were also impressed by the fact that the nuclear plants received giant demonstrations of support. I'm glad to say that our movement made a template that was followable. The unions were encouraged to act after seeing our activists act. Well, when there was a protest by the environmental groups that didn't want to save the nuclear plant, only a few people came, and it was a pretty sad group. They had a professional MC, and they had to hire people to come make it look diverse, which is embarrassing to see. And I think that shifted the balance of power in the eyes of the politician. So I'm glad to say that through all of those struggles, our simple message that no climate action would be valid without the nuclear plant staying on, it took. And I think the unions held the line and said these jobs are nothing. And eventually enough compromises were reached to save the plant. On Monday, we expect to see the sign of the bill that will stabilize plant revenue and secure those nuclear plants forever.
Is Biden better than Obama for nuclear, or is this the same?
I think he's better because the professional class of Democratic politicians is seeing a danger to their future careers to be anti-nuclear at this point. There's a number of clean energy experts. I mean, how can you say that if they didn't know anything about nuclear? But whatever. The definition of clean energy expert is clearly changing because these experts were getting into the Biden administration and suddenly having to learn the word nuclear for the first time and see it. And of course they're like, wow, those are really big numbers in nuclear. And I mean, they still say, well, the nuclear industry should do this or nuclear advocates should do that when they haven't been around. The reason why we need nuclear advocates is because the clean energy community didn't accept the best technology as one of theirs, right? The fact that this is happening under Biden, whether or not to give Biden credit for that, I don't know. I think it's pathetic that under President Obama from Illinois, the most nuclear-heavy state in the country by megawatt hours generated, there was such an absolutely terrible track record of officials on the issue. I mean, it wasn't completely terrible. We saw Vogel continue and really get under construction and go. Obviously, that was a hangover from Bush-era policies, but it was still really good to see that, and that happened under President Obama. The appointment of officials to kill Yucca Mountain, as much as I think the goal of destroying Yucca Mountain is very admirable because it's fake engineering, it's fake science, it's absolute bullshit. I'm glad Yucca Mountain is dead. The way they did it was to put anti-nuclear ideologues who were also preparing to do business in wind and solar into the positions of highest responsibility in the nation on nuclear. That was reprehensible, and I don't care what the power balance was in the White House or the Democratic Party in order to get it. That alone is pretty much unforgivable. So Biden just not doing that is an improvement. It's really bad that a lot of Biden's top climate advisors come from the anti-nuclear, ultra well-funded environmental groups that are actively shutting down nuclear plants next to the most energy-hungry cities in the country. That's horrible. Specifically, he has an advisor who was just at NRDC, which celebrated the loss of Indian Point in April and was already, by the time blackouts were starting later that summer, were trying to run ads saying how bad natural gas was when they were silent and supportive of all the natural gas plants that had to be built in order to get the nuclear plant shut off. I don't know whether she's still whispering anti-nuclear things or whether she even knows what was done under her watch, but that's really grim too if he's got advisors who were clueless about the destruction of New York City's energy supply. We'll see. I know that the foreign policy under Trump that's very much pro-American nuclear in the world, that has continued without any abatement. It's been really slow waiting for like the Department of Energy to be staffed up with nuclear officials, but I'm pretty sure that now that the ball is rolling, a lot of projects of American capital, expertise, engineering help around the world are really picking up. Friends and advisors of mine are in Europe right now making sure that American capital and I mean, I would like to say technology backing, but we're a little behind on a number of areas. We're showing up in Europe to counteract the policies of Belgium and Germany in handing the energy system over to Russia. So I think that the US started being a very good partner to Europe under Trump on energy, and we're continuing it despite backing off on Nord Stream 2.
So, stand up for nuclear?
Yes, please. Oh, you would like, okay, so yeah. Stand Up for Nuclear is both a phrase in capital letters as the name of the movement that I help work on with my colleague Paris, but it's also a lowercase phrase where literally here we are out on a public square where person after person coming out of Brussels Central Station asked us about nuclear. I watched some of the Belgians here today, like Anisette Touré. You don't see him now, he must be already in the pub. I watched him go up to young Belgians and convert them on the spot to the idea of a career in nuclear energy, just because he had hope from this event and the events of today that there will be a future for these young Belgians in nuclear energy. So yeah, stand up for nuclear energy, stay standing, and start running. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.